In this video, I'm going to be talking about the dominant seventh tetrad. A tetrad is a chord that consists of 4 notes. So up until now, we've dealt with triads, which are chords with 3 notes, but now we have tetrads, which are chords with 4 notes. So to look at this chord, we need to start off in a key, obviously. So let's use G major here. And as the name dominant seventh implies, we start on the 5th degree of our scale to write this chord. So I'm going to give us a dominant chord symbol there, writing number 5 as a Roman numeral. And then in the key of G major, I'll write the notes D, F sharp, and A to form my dominant triad. Now, to turn this into a dominant 7th tetrad, I'll need to add the 7th note above that bass note. So D, F, A, I'll add a C on top. So by stacking thirds, I get the notes 1, 3, 5, and 7. And I indicate this in my Roman numeral by writing a little 7 next to that 5 Roman numeral. Let's have a listen to this chord. So as you can hear, this chord is full of tension, and it's the interplay between that D and the C that gives us added tension to our dominant chord, which is already a tension chord. So it heightens the tension of the chord. Now, like with any other chord that we write, we can write this in various inversions. So let's have a look at how we will label the inversions of our dominant 7th tetrad. So I'm going to just duplicate this chord, and then I'm going to take my bottom note, my root note, and I'm going to take it up an octave. Now I've got the note F sharp in the bass, but the chord is still D, F sharp, A, C, so it's still a dominant 7th chord. I'm going to put the dominant chord symbol there, but I'm not going to put any numbers yet because they're going to be slightly different numbers to indicate that this chord is an inversion. As I mentioned just now, the added tension that we get in a dominant 7th tetrad comes from the interplay between that 7th, the D to the C, and if you invert the D to the C, it becomes a C to a D, which is a second. So it's the second or the 7th that gives us the tension. So here we need to focus on the second, which is made up of the C and the D. So that's what's giving us our extra tension there. And we're going to look at the distance between our bass note, which in this case is F sharp, and the 2 notes that cause that little crunch, that nice bit of tension. So F sharp to C gives me a 5th, and F sharp to D is the interval of a 6th. So what I'm going to do is, rather than writing 7, I'm going to write the numbers 6 and 5 next to my chord 5 Roman numeral, to show that this dominant 7th tetrad is in first inversion. And let's have a listen to it. So we still have that lovely sense of tension there. Again, let's duplicate this chord. And now I'm going to take my F sharp up an octave. Okay, and now I have my A in the bass, and this is in second inversion. Again, we want to look at the crunch. Okay, so the crunch is made up of C and D. So we want to look at the intervals between my bottom note, which is an A, and the notes that cause the crunch. So here, from A to C, I have the interval of a 3rd, and from A to D, I have the interval of a 4th. So to indicate that I have a dominant 7th tetrad in second inversion, I'm going to write the notes 4 and 3 next to my dominant chord symbol or Roman numeral. Normally this is where we would stop with triads, because triads can only be written in root, first and second inversion, but when we've got a tetrad, we can actually write it in third inversion as well. So again, let's duplicate this chord, and we're going to take our bottom note up an octave, So now we've got the C in the bass. We can still label it with a chord 5. And again, we want to focus on the crunch, which is made up of C and D. We've got a bit of a problem here now because we can't measure the distance between the bottom note and the notes that cause the crunch, because the crunch is right at the bottom. So what we're going to do is we're going to start by looking at the distance that we find within the crunch, which is a second. So between C and D, we have a second. And then we're going to look at the interval between the bottom note, which is our crunch note, and the next note, which is a fourth. Okay, so between C and F sharp, we get our fourth there. So we will indicate this with the notes, or with the numbers rather, 4 and 2 next to our dominant chord symbol. So this is the one where it gets a little bit tricky because our crunch is right at the bottom. So let's just take a listen to all of these chords. So here we have our dominant 7th in root position, in first inversion, in second inversion, and in third inversion. So you can see these are lovely tension-filled chords that give us a beautiful sense of anticipation and this need to resolve to chord 1. So they are lovely to use to add to that tension and heighten a sense of resolution when we eventually do resolve them, which I will address in a forthcoming video. We can write these in 4-part harmony, obviously, and the nice thing about tetrads is we don't need to consider which notes we double, because we've already got 4 notes to write in 4-part harmony. So in each of these cases, we would make sure that our bass note is written right at the bottom. So whichever inversion we have, we would write that bass note in the bass voice. And then we can space out our other notes, just so long as we follow our 4-part rules. We don't want parallel fifths or octaves, and we don't want any intervals greater than an octave between our notes. So let's have a listen to chord 5 in root position, in first inversion, in second inversion, and finally in third inversion. So these are lovely chords that you can incorporate into your 4-part harmony writing. Just please be aware of the fact that with this added tension, the need to resolve them correctly becomes even more important. So please have a look at my next video, which is about the resolution of dominant 7ths, so that you can see how to use them properly.